My father once told me a story from his youth. He said to me, "I only tell you this story, my son, because the tree will call for you. And as your father, I can only hope and pray to God himself that you do this one thing for me. Stay away from the dead tree." I looked at my father with confusion. "Stay away from the dead tree and promise me that if it calls you, you'll fight to ignore it," my father said as he collapsed his hands onto his arms. "But why? What's wrong with the tree, and why would it call me?" I looked at him with shock. To think, this all started because my 18th birthday was just around the corner, and I wanted to go on a hiking trip in the woods by our home. The woods itself was 125 acres, and we technically owned most of it. But for whatever reason, my old man refused to let us wander the woods. Today, he would finally tell me, and I would come to regret knowing why. When my father was a boy, he wandered the woods. As he would say, those were the best times of his life. Then one day, Father found a tree that was willing to give him anything he wanted. He decided to test this by asking the tree for an apple, for he was hungry after all the running that he did. To Father's surprise, the tree gave him an apple. It was the best apple that Father had ever eaten, or so he claimed. The tree watched Father yawn from exhaustion and offered a place beneath its branches for him to rest. Like most children, he refused and claimed that he was not sleepy.
"Shall I lead you home, young one?"
Father smirked, and he asked the tree how it could do so if it could not move. The tree gave off a warm, radiant atmosphere and said,
"Follow the trail of roses, and it will lead you home."
Father looked in shock as he turned around and saw the roses bloom that were not there before. He thanked the tree and followed the trail home. He gave one of the roses to his mother, my grandmother, and it did not wilt. So long as it hung by the window that looked toward the tree, it refused to wilt. It made my grandmother suspicious but happy with the rose nonetheless. Every chance Father got, he went to see the tree that gave him so much, but never asked for anything in return. It wasn't until I grew into my teenage years that I began to abuse the tree. Something that I still regret to this very day, Father said with tears in his eyes. He continued on, and I could not believe my ears at what he said he did to the tree. Instead of asking for things, my father began to demand things such as enough delicious apples to make him a rich man, an endless spring to sell water by the jug, and enough wood to make his own furniture and home with, never once thanking the tree for all it had given him. His greed knew no bounds. My father got it into his head that he could sell the very tree that gave him literally everything that he could ask for, and never once asked for anything in return. "But, Father, what would possess you to do something so awful to a living being that gave you everything?" I blurted out. I did not mean to interrupt him, but I could not resist. Father didn't respond. He instead lowered his head in shame and gripped the armrest tight enough to see the whites of his knuckles. He finally spoke. "Greed does terrible things to a man's character, my son. I will forever hate myself for it, but it's too late for me. Now please, let your father finish, for I do not know how much time I have left. I feel that the tree has only allowed me to live this long to allow me to reflect on what I have done. A form of punishment that I rightfully deserved. For had I just stopped and seen what I was about to do. I could have stopped what became of that poor tree. It is why we had to move far away from that place after you had turned 2 years old." Father did not look at me. Instead, he looked lost at the fireplace. His eyes seemed fixed on the flames that crackled. He then continued to tell me of the horrors that came from his actions, never once looking in my direction. It was a beautiful summer day. Mother greeted my father with a kiss upon his cheek as they both watched me play just outside our 2-story cabin home through the kitchen window. He told Mother of his plan to cut down the tree and sell it for all that he could. Mother was against this plan of Father's and tried to reason with him. Father, however, would not listen. In his mind, the rich would come to buy wood because it would make their coffers fuller, and in return would make our family among the richest families in the world. Greed really did destroy more than just the character of a man, as Father would soon discover. Father asked my uncle to help him cut down the tree.
Hello, young ones. What would you ask of me today?
This made my uncle freeze in place. Father could feel his blood turn to ice within his veins, but brushed it off as he told his brother to ignore it and start cutting it down.
What have I done to you that would make you do this to me? Please, I'll give you anything you wish. Just do not harm me.
Father didn't care. The clouds turned gray and my uncle threw his axe to the ground. My uncle told Father that he would have no part in this and left. I wish I had followed suit, but I could not stop myself. I cut at the tree as it screamed in pain. I never once thought of the forest itself would cry along with the tree, but every animal in the forest stopped and witnessed the carnage. Nature itself was violently angry with me. I could tell by the sudden storm that we never once had. When I tell you that I felt the very fury of the earth, I mean every single word of it. It was as if every eye in the forest changed from shock to pure rage. It took it out on your poor mother and forced me to watch. The roots of the very tree that I cut down, with no thought whatsoever, sprang forth from the earth and restrained me on my knees. I tried to look away, but it forced my eyes open. I watched as your once beautiful mother suffered for my mistake. I begged and pleaded for the tree to punish me instead. Father broke down crying. Through his tears, Father spoke of how the tree forced him to watch Mother cry out in pain as spores forced her in place. She had immediately ran out of the house when the storm occurred to check on Father, and it would be her last mistake. Though she was paralyzed, she was still able to scream in pain as every root of the forest forced its way in her skin and made her feel her muscles and bones snap one by one. It mimicked the swings Father put into the tree. All my father could do was scream and cry as he watched the very woman who warned him die a slow and painful death. She did not die until minutes went by and her heart gave out. Not that it mattered, as her heart was forced in one motion out of her chest, through her throat, and out of her mouth. Father shouted that he would kill everything in the whole damn forest for this. That was until he saw that I had witnessed everything and heard my dear sister, who was just a baby, cry in my arms.
I will claim them in time, and any children that they dare to have till your whole bloodline is paid for your transgression. For all you deserve is a fate worse than death.
He could hear the tree whisper in his ear.
You knew better, yet you taught greed to your household. Therefore, they will suffer for your pure arrogance.
It said in a harsh whisper and let Father go. He could hear the forest tell him to leave. The last thing Father saw was the rose that he gave to Mother, a similar rose like the one he gave to my grandmother. It had not wilted until the tree had fallen. My mother's heart rested on the tree's stump, and stems grew from it. Father moved us away from the forest. Every year, Father tried to reason with the former tree, but the tree would not listen.
I begged for my very life, and yet still you ended my life. Your brother walked away before your first swing, but because he did not stop you, I blinded him, and only him. But for you, your bloodline and your wife will suffer. For in this life, you took everything from me.
It said angrily. Each time Father went to see the tree, it grew more, but its bark was as black as coal. By the time I turned 17, the stump of the tree, as well as the tree itself, was a 9-foot tree that was black with tints of red to them. I had no words left to speak and stormed out of the huge family room. Father did not say a word as I left and did not leave his chair by the fireplace. On one hand, I did not believe the story right away. On the other hand, it made sense why when I told Father that I could hear Mother calling for me when I was younger, he would quickly dismiss it, refusing to talk about it. Maybe Father was just trying to stop me and my sister from suffering from his greed, but I just could not look at him the same from that day forth. Housekeepers ran to me a few days later as they spoke of my father and my sister's strange disappearance. The only thing remaining was large amounts of blood and footprints leading from the master bedroom to the front door. Tracks could be seen leading into the very woods Father warned us about. So, here I sit in my father's office and write about the last of my days before I answer the tree's calling. I will join my family soon and pay the price for the sins of my father. I just hope it's a more swift death than that of my poor mother.